Sarah handed me the ring box across the kitchen table, her eyes bright and expectant. "Open it," she said, voice trembling with excitement. "I found the perfect one for you." I flipped the lid. Inside sat a thick platinum band embedded with a row of small diamonds, easily $15,000, maybe more. She'd been talking about upgrading my boring silver wedding band for months. Ever since we started planning the 10th anniversary vow renewal she insisted we needed. "It's beautiful," I said, sliding it onto my finger to try the fit. Felt heavy, cold. "But babe, we agreed we were saving for the cabin up north. This is a lot." Her smile faltered for half a second, then returned brighter. "I know, but we deserve something special. 10 years, Ethan. And once we have the cabin, we'll be up there all the time. This ring will remind you every day what we're building toward." I nodded slowly, the way I'd learned to do when I sensed a conversation was about to turn into a campaign. "Let me think about it." She reached across and squeezed my hand. Of course, no pressure. That was the first lie of many. What Sarah didn't know, what no one knew, was that 3 years earlier, after a routine physical turned up some concerning blood work, I'd quietly sold every stock and crypto position I owned and moved the money into a trust. The doctor had warned me the condition could worsen fast, that aggressive treatment might be needed, and that I should protect assets in case I became unable to work. I followed his advice to the letter. The trust was irrevocable. My name wasn't on any of it anymore. Not the brokerage accounts, not the retirement funds, not even the savings we supposedly shared. Everything was locked away, accessible only through a trustee I'd appointed. My oldest friend Marcus, a trusts and estates attorney who owed me a favor I'd never called in until then. I never told Sarah. Our marriage had been good, comfortable. Money wasn't something we fought about. She handled day-to-day spending, I handled investments. I figured if the worst never happened, I'd quietly unwind the trust later. No harm done. But the worst didn't happen. My health stabilized. And Sarah's spending didn't. It started small. Designer bags. A new SUV she needed for client meetings. Weekend spa trips with her friends. Then came the cabin idea. She found a 5-bedroom lakefront property 2 hours north, listed at just under $2 million. She sent me the listing with heart emojis and the words, "Our forever home." I reminded her we'd agreed to keep looking for something half that price. She reminded me we'd been married 10 years and deserved to live a little. The discussions grew longer, more emotional. She started crying about how our current house felt stale, how she wanted a place where we could host big family holidays, how she felt stuck while all her friends were upgrading that I kept stalling. Politely, reasonably, I asked for more time to get the financing lined up. I pointed out the high property taxes. I suggested we rent a cabin for a summer first to make sure we loved the area. Every delay seemed to make her more determined. Then came the ring, and the vow renewal venue deposit, non-refundable $25,000, and the private chef she booked for the rehearsal dinner. The invoices started landing in my email like quiet artillery. One night, she sat me down with a glass of wine and a spreadsheet. "I ran the numbers," she said proudly. "If we liquidate the investment accounts and take a bigger mortgage, we can do both, the cabin and the renewal, without touching our lifestyle." I stared at the screen. Every account she'd listed showed healthy balances. She had no idea they were empty shells now, that the money had vanished into the trust years ago. That was the moment the cold rage settled in. She wasn't just spending. She was counting on money she thought I couldn't refuse to give her. She was banking on my love, my desire not to disappoint her on our milestone anniversary, my reluctance to admit I'd moved everything out of reach without telling her. She was trying to corner me. I could have confronted her right then. Shown her the trust documents. Watched her face as she realized the accounts were empty. But that would have been loud, private, containable. She would cry, apologize, promise to scale back, maybe even guilt me into loosening the trust anyway for the sake of our marriage. No. This required something bigger. I smiled at the spreadsheet. You've thought of everything, I said. Let's do it. Her eyes lit up like I'd handed her the world. Over the next 8 months, I became the perfect, enthusiastic husband that I toured the lakefront cabin with her 3 times. I nodded thoughtfully at the granite countertops, the vaulted ceilings, the private dock. I asked the listing agent detailed questions about septic systems and winter maintenance. I even suggested we put in an offer, contingent on appraisal, of course. I met with the event planner for the vow renewal. I tasted cake samples. I approved the string quartet and the floral arch that cost more than my first car. I wrote checks for deposits from an account I kept topped up just enough to look normal. I watched her invite 200 people. I watched her post engagement-style photos on social media with captions about the next chapter. I watched her friend Lauren, the one who'd been with her on every shopping trip, every planning brunch, beam beside her in every picture, always ready with encouragement. Lauren, the real estate agent who stood to make a 6-figure commission on the cabin sale. Lauren, who'd been gently nudging Sarah toward bigger and bigger dreams for years. I started paying closer attention to their texts when Sarah left her phone on the counter. Nothing overt, just a lot of heart emojis and inside jokes, and Lauren saying things like, "You deserve this life," and "He'll come around once he sees how happy it makes you." I booked the honeymoon suite at the resort where the vow renewal would be held. I paid the balance in full. I let Sarah pick out a new dress, custom, imported lace, $38,000. She cried when it arrived. Every step of the way I encouraged her. I told her she was right, that we did deserve this, that 10 years was worth celebrating in style. Inside, I was calm, methodical. I met with Marcus one afternoon while Sarah was at a fitting. I explained what I needed. A simple, notarized letter on his firm's letterhead confirming the existence and terms of the irrevocable trust, the date it was funded, and the fact that I no longer had unilateral access to the principal. 1 page. Devastating. He raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. He'd known me since college. He understood. The letter arrived in a plain white envelope. I kept it in the inner pocket of the suit I planned to wear to the vow renewal. The weekend arrived. The resort was everything Sarah had dreamed. Rolling lawns, lake views, white tents glowing with fairy lights. Guests flew in from across the country. Her parents toasted us at the rehearsal dinner. My mother hugged me and whispered how proud she was. I smiled through all of it. The morning of the ceremony, Sarah stood in front of the mirror in her suite, radiant in the lace dress. Lauren adjusted the train, eyes shining. "You look incredible," I told her, kissing her cheek. "I'll see you out there." She squeezed my hand. "I love you so much." "I love you too," I said, and I meant it, in the way you can still love someone while recognizing they've become someone else. The ceremony was held on a bluff overlooking the water. Rows of white chairs, roses everywhere. A string quartet played as guests took their seats. Sarah walked down the aisle on her father's arm. She was glowing. Everyone stood. Cameras clicked. We stood under the floral arch. The officiant, a friend of hers, began with a welcome. Then he turned to me. "Ethan has prepared a few words before we begin the vows," he said warmly. Sarah looked at me, eyes soft, expecting sentiment. I stepped forward, microphone in hand. Thank you all for being here. I began, voice steady. This weekend means the world to us. 10 years of marriage is something worth celebrating. Polite applause. I looked out over the crowd. Her parents, my parents, friends, co-workers, Lauren sitting in the front row in pale blue, smiling proudly. Marriage, I continued, is built on trust, on honesty, on shared dreams, yes, but also shared reality. Sarah's smile flickered that I reached into my jacket and pulled out the envelope. I have 2 small gifts today, I said. One for my beautiful wife, and one for the person who's worked so tirelessly to make all of this possible. I turned to Lauren. Her smile wavered. Lauren, I said, raising my glass of champagne. Thank you for helping Sarah plan every detail of this incredible weekend. And thank you especially for encouraging her to pursue that lakefront cabin you're listing. I know how hard you've worked to make this dream feel urgent. Lauren's face went pale. I turned back to Sarah. She was frozen. And for you, sweetheart, I said softly, holding out the envelope. This is a copy of the trust agreement I executed 3 years ago. It details how every investment account you've been counting on was transferred into an irrevocable trust for medical contingency planning. I never got around to telling you. My mistake. I placed the envelope in her trembling hand. The accounts you've been drawing up spreadsheets for? They've been empty for years. The cabin offer won't close. The vendors for this weekend have already been paid in full, from money I set aside before the trust. Everything else, well, that's between you and reality now. A gasp rippled through the crowd. I looked out at the stunned faces. I truly wish you both nothing but happiness, I said, nodding toward Lauren, in whatever form that takes going forward. Then I set the microphone gently on the small table, turned, and walked back down the aisle, and no one stopped me. Behind me, I heard the officiant clear his throat awkwardly. Then Sarah's mother's sharp voice demanding to know what the letter said. Then Sarah's sob, raw, broken. I kept walking. I drove home that night. The resort had arranged a room for me, but I didn't need it. Over the following weeks, the fallout arrived in pieces. Mutual friends texted in shock. Some stopped speaking to her entirely. Her parents were mortified. The non-refundable deposits, the spectacle, the realization their daughter had been planning a life built on money she assumed I couldn't say no to. Lauren lost the listing when the sellers found out about the drama. Word travels fast in that world. Sarah moved out a month later. She took the SUV, the designer bags, whatever fit in it. The house sold quickly. We split the equity 50-50. No kids, no complications. She tried calling a few times. Left voicemails that started angry and ended pleading. I didn't answer. The trust remains intact. My health is still good. I bought a small cabin myself last spring. 1 bedroom, quiet lake, paid in cash. I spend weekends there reading, hiking, cooking simple meals. Sometimes I sit on the dock at sunset and think about the weekend that never quite happened. I don't feel triumph. Exactly. More like relief. She thought she was guiding us toward a bigger life. She never realized I'd already protected the one I wanted. And in the end, all I had to do was let her build the stage, invite the audience, and step aside before the curtain rose. The quiet ones usually see the most.